Okay, according to this, we is live.
Are we live? That's the question. Good evening, chat. Can you see us? Can you see us and can you hear us? Don't know.
Still got
Thanks, Dave, for that.
Thank you, Dave.
I might as well just check if we are, actually. There we go. Hold on a sec. Bum, 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 bum. Quick look at the web page. Yeah, I can see myself, so that's quite good.
We are there.
Always helps. Good evening, guys. It's about a minute to 9 o'clock, so we're just doing our little bit beforehand, as you do. AKA Chief, good evening to you. Pete's in there, Mike B, Fuzzy Ann, Monster, Pete Collins, Gary Dibley's in chat. Oh my God. And Rob. And Mr. Hi-Fi Stud's in the house. Yes. And we have got today, we've got not only myself, there's Mr. Dibley. Say hello, Mr. Dibley.
Hello.
And we've also got Russ. Is it Wishtart, Russ?
You got it right.
I got it right. There we go. There's the man. He's audio only. But we'll be talking to him in the first section of the show. So we shall just bug up and we'll see you in about 10 seconds. Well, bless my soul. It appears to be 9 o'clock on Tuesday the 27th of January. Yeah, where's that going? Mind you, the good thing is tomorrow it's mod token day. Yes, for many of us who get paid at the end of the month, which is all good. On tonight's show, not only do we have Mr. Dibley, this is this chappie here.
Good evening.
Yes, we've also got Russ Wishtart from, oops, that's the wrong key. We've got Russ Wishtart from across the pond. Good evening, Russ.
Hey, good evening, guys. Good evening, everybody.
And we're going to be talking after the titles about the court action that was taken last March, by Clash. And Russ has had some information recently, and he shared it on his radio show on Click Bang last week, from the lawyer who's dealing with the case, so he's going to fill us in on all that. So all that is going to be after we have the titles. Yeah, it's Vaper Scene. Vaper Scene is proudly sponsored by Health E-Vape, UK purveyor of e-cigarettes and Pure Perfection e-liquids. Yes, good evening. It's just after 9 o'clock on the 27th. Welcome to this week's Vaper Scene. Hopefully you're not going to get any audio syncing issues, and we're talking Chinglish like we've had recently. If we do, I apologise. But we'll have to see if it catches up or if there's any issues. I'm sure you'll let us know in chat. Yes. And if you can't hear us, just shout up in chat and we'll tweak it up a little bit. So on tonight's show, we have Mr. Dibley. Say hello, Mr. Dibley.
Good evening. And I promise I didn't break it again.
No, yes. Gary's here tonight. Will it break? I don't know. He wasn't here last week and it was okay. So we'll see what happens. We've got some stories coming up in part 2. And in part 3, we have the latest edition of MFT, which is rather good. And Garry does something rather good at the end. Yes, so keep watching for that one. But let me introduce my other guest tonight, which is Russ Wishtart from over there in the States. Whereabouts are you, Russ?
I live in New York City. I live in Manhattan.
There you go, Manhattan. I've not been there for some time. Many, many years ago, I spent one night in New York.
Yeah, it's, we were, the city was supposed to get, they were forecasting with 100% confidence that we were supposed to get 2 to 3 feet of snow today, between last night and today. And the storm, it really missed us, but we got maybe 8 inches. But, you know, a foot in New York will shut the city down, forget about 2 to 3 feet. So the city just started shutting down last night. They even prohibited all non-emergency vehicles from traveling past 11 p.m. So it was kind of surreal that the city was shut down, and 8 inches really isn't that bad. The city can deal with that fairly easily. So, today it's crazy. The city is still, even though there's no snow, it's still largely shut down. They shut down all the mass transit. They shut down all the streets. And they didn't open up until this afternoon. Why it took so long, I don't know. It certainly wasn't because of the weather. So it's kind of like everybody has a snow day from snow that didn't come today. So it's kind of weird.
Yeah, I mean, a foot would cripple the UK. We're just not good.
I've been in London with 2 inches. 2 inches cripples London.
Yes, this is very true. We had some snow last week. It wasn't much. I mean, when I was a kid, we used to get 3, 4, 5 foot drifts outside our house. We don't get that kind of snow anymore.
Right.
But yeah, a small amount cripple the airports, that's for sure, because we're just not geared up for it. And they won't spend the billions of pounds they need to do that. But let me talk a little bit about, while we've got you on today,
Sure.
Last year, let me just bring this up. It's rather a large piece of text there, chat, but this will kind of give you a flavour. This is from March 2014, so 10 months ago, and the NY Citizens Lobbying Against Smoker Harassment, otherwise known as CLASH, and yourself, 3 of attorneys filed a lawsuit against New York City and the New York City Council, seeking to overturn the public ban on the use of e-cigs. Now, we know that they're pretty hot on tobacco smoking over there. In fact, the last time I was there wasn't any bans going on, but I was abused walking down the street because I was smoking. It's just rather strange. But what's happened recently? Because I know on your show last week you had the lawyer on who's dealing with the case. What's kind of happened in the interim period?
Well, if I may, just to update, because perhaps some of your audience isn't aware of what New York did or why we're suing. So if I could just back up, the organization, NYC Clash, as you said, New York City Citizens Lobbying Against Smoker Harassment, was formed 15 years ago by Audrey Silk, who's an ex-NYPD police officer turned, after she retired, she became an activist, like I said, against smoker harassment. There was no vaping 15 years ago, but as vaping started to become more popular, a lot of the Clash members began to be vapers, and Audrey then became involved in also fighting against vapor harassment, largely coming at this point from the government. But clash was formed to fight just like what you had mentioned, that you were walking down the street and you were harassed when you were a smoker here, and that's part of the reason why she founded the group. It is to protect the civil liberty. It was founded to protect the civil liberties of smokers, and obviously is devoting a lot of its time to protecting the civil liberties of vapers now. Now, one of the principal things that Audrey was fighting when she founded the group was the same piece of legislation that was to enact this vapor ban, and that was I believe it started as the New York Clean Air Act, later changed to the New York Smoke-Free Air Act, which effectively banned smoking in all indoor places, as well as any outdoor public space that was a park or a beach. That amounts to 15% of the entire land area of New York City. So while you can still walk down a sidewalk and smoke or vape, as it were, which is, and you can't do it in the middle of Central Park, which actually makes no sense at all, because during rush hour in Midtown, when there's people shoulder to shoulder, you're allowed to smoke a cigarette, and somebody could be an inch away from you. Whereas if you are in the middle of Central Park with nobody near you for 200 feet, that would be illegal. So it doesn't quite make sense. But anyway, that law was enacted. For better or for worse, it's a popular law in New York. People overall do seem to be pleased that there's no smoking allowed in bars and restaurants and the like. But be that as it may, what New York City did, I guess it would be at the end of 2012, they rammed through, even after promising us in a previous public hearing that they would not do anything to infringe on the rights of vapers to use their devices indoors. They pushed through rather aggressively a piece of legislation, Local Law 152, which was then added to the New York Smoke-Free Air Act. They pushed it through. They were successful. The final vote was something like 41 or 42 to 8. I believe it was 42 to 8. So they pushed it through. Not that we didn't fight. We fought it very, very hard, but we lost. What Audrey noticed was that the way that they pushed this legislation through, in her belief, and in our lawyer's belief, obviously, was illegal because of the way that they did it. The reason why is because of a rule. This is not a federal rule, but it's, some states have this and some states don't, called the one subject rule. And what the one subject rule is, it means that when a legislative body passes a law in New York State and New York City, it must be about one subject. So, for example, if you have a piece of legislation that governs how you can sell milk and what the regulations and procedures are for the sale of milk, and you've got that law and it's on the books, you cannot then go and change the law, or at the same time even make it, even draft a law that is both about selling milk and selling orange juice, because they are two different subjects. They are two different things. And that's exactly what New York City did with this ban on vaping. They did not take out a piece of paper and draft a law that was the Vaper Free Air Act. They took an existing piece of legislation about smoking and just added the words "and electronic cigarettes," a dozen times or whatever in law. So according to the one subject rule, since smoking and vaping are two different things, two different subjects, we filed a lawsuit on the grounds that New York City violated the one subject rule by taking a piece of legislation about one thing, smoking, and adding a different thing, vaping. So we discussed this immediately after we lost, and it was signed into law by Bloomberg on his last day in office. We started to talk about it, and we filed suit in March of 2014. Things don't exactly move at a lightning pace, but it does look like this is going to get wrapped up probably in March or April. So all things considered, a year isn't too bad. What the most recent update is that we finally got to see what the city's response to our complaint or our lawsuit was, and it's actually comical. Their argument is that they did not violate the one subject rule because this thing that they introduced, which is called local law 152. Their argument is that it is not a law. I know that sounds crazy, but believe it or not, that is their response, and it's public. All the documents are public. You can read it for yourself. Making it up. They're saying it's not a law. It doesn't sound like an awfully strong defense to me, but judge, and I'm not a lawyer, but our lawyers did think it was rather weak. Anyway, the money that was raised for this all came from the vaping community, from vendors and vapors who contributed the money, not just to pay for this lawsuit, but also to pay for the almost certain appeal. If we lose this case, if it comes March or April and we lose, we will appeal, and we have the money to do that. And if the city loses, they're almost certain to appeal as well. So this is round one, perhaps of two, perhaps of three. There can be a third appeal, but it would probably be unlikely. But yeah, we're fighting this very aggressively. Our lawyers have done a fantastic job. These guys are the law firm is Josh P. Law Group, and are very they gave us frankly a pretty good price on this lawsuit, because they are so passionate about defending civil liberties of all types. They've worked with Audrey in the past to battle against smoker harassment and smoking laws that they thought to be illegal, and that they feel the same way about vaping. So they're doing a great job, and in short order, we'll find out in a month or two or three.
Yeah, I was listening obviously to your show last week. The next day actually, because you're on quite late. You're on at 9:00 Eastern, so that's 2:00 in the UK. And I saw also that you'd posted all the documentation, every single piece of it as well, and links to it. So if people want to go have a look, if you go to the VP Live Network, Click Bang, which is Ross's show, is on Tuesdays at 9. But you're on Wednesday?
No, I was on Tuesday. It's every generally just about every Tuesday at 9 p.m. Eastern time. That's certainly too late for your viewers in the UK for the most part, but that's okay, because most people listen to the show on SoundCloud, which is where we post the replays. If you want to go to the archives, perhaps you could put it in your show chat roll. The link to get to the ClickBang archives is bit.ly. It's bit.ly/ClickBang. Perhaps you could put that in your chat for me. Yeah, and that's how most people access the content.
Yeah, what I'll do is I'll put the links up on the YouTube page after the show or during the ads, so people can have a look at all of that. And also the VP Live Network there, it's vapersplace.com/VP Live. You'll see all the different shows there. You've got Russ, and of course you've got Demetrius, who was on last week's show on Vaper Scene last week. And you can hear all those shows. I know Dave Dawn has been on your show before, has he not?
Yes, more than once. Yeah, Dave is a great advocate, and I really look up to what he's done. And really what the advocacy scene, at least the way it seems to me, is that vapors in the EU are much more proactive than vapors in the United States. To be honest, listen, there's a core group of advocacy enthusiasts in the U.S., and what they do is amazing. That being said, it's my perception that 98% of vapors in the U.S., and I'm not just talking about the ones that don't go on the internet and aren't aware of all of these legal issues that we're facing. I'm talking about the ones that are on the internet that know that there are these threats, that they do nothing. And I'm frankly disgusted with the level of advocacy that goes on in the U.S. It's my perception, and correct me if I'm wrong, it just seems to me from what I see that the advocacy scene in the EU is much more vibrant, much more passionate, much more numerous than what we have here in the U.S., which is terrible given the size of our population being so much higher. I don't know. You tell me. Am I seeing it wrong? It just seems like you guys are doing such a better job than we are.
I wouldn't say a better job. There is a lot that is done over in the EU and in the UK. There's more stuff happening across the pond with you guys. there's only a couple of lawsuits. I know Totally Wicked are challenging the law in the European Parliament, but it seems to be that the US are better at getting into court than we are over here.
Interesting.
That's my perception.
Well, whatever it is, it's great that there are that group there, but I'm trying to figure out ways to get more people involved against because it's just endless. In the U.S. we have a federal government, and obviously the FDA is about to do something with regard to the electronic cigarettes, and that will affect the entire country. However, there is a great deal in the United States. There's a great deal of flexibility that each state has with regard to their own local laws, and it has just been an endless barrage. There's legislation on the floor in New York State right now tabled, but they're trying to ban the sale of all e-liquid. That's all e-liquid, unless it's in a cig-alike sealed cartridge. So any bottle of e-liquid, they're trying to make it illegal to buy or sell that in the state of New York, which it would obviously cripple all of the brick and mortars and the online vendors and et cetera, et cetera. When you see something like that, something that would literally decimate the entire community in New York, I just don't see enough action on it. I don't see people doing a whole lot. Given the low level of advocacy that we've had, we've been able to table it, at least now temporarily, but they keep coming back with it again and again and again, and they will keep doing it until it goes through, and then it'll be too late, But, we push back as hard as we can. Groups like CASA and the Vaping Militia and the AVA, the American Vaping Association, do a great job of fighting and getting out in front of the press and all that kind of thing. But we need more help because it is just endless. They don't stop.
Yeah, it's a little bit different in that sense because you've got so many states and they've got their own laws that they can set. In the UK, we've got basically England, Northern Ireland, Wales is one, and then Scotland can do something separate-ish, but it's pretty much the same. But the European Parliament and the Tobacco Products Directive that comes live in 2016 pretty much wants to get rid of everything. So we're fighting that battle as well. So the FDA going and doing something very similar as well. It's something that we need to make sure that we can all fight, Europe and America together, and the rest of the world as well. There's still issues in Australia with people being prosecuted for selling e-cigs, and some states it's illegal to use nicotine liquid at all. You can use zero nic, but you can't have nicotine. That's in Queensland. So it seems to be little pockets across the world are doing different things, but we need kind of one voice with all of us, really.
Yeah, it would be nice. Well, it's not surprising. This is obviously an issue that affects the entire world. Pharmaceutical companies are multinational, and so are tobacco companies, and they don't want tobacco harm reduction products. They want their products, cessation devices, patches, gums, lozenges, Chantix. They want to sell their products, and it's been demonstrated now, without a doubt, that the electronic cigarette vapors have seriously cut into their profits. So they're only going to be more. They're only going to be trying to stomp us out. I don't know of a government besides Sweden or perhaps even maybe Norway that has been truly kind to a tobacco harm reduction product. And I don't know that they've been particularly kind to e-cigarettes. They've been kind to snus. But we have this problem all over the world. Anywhere where pharmaceuticals are sold, we will likely find a government that will not be our friend.
Yes, it's the whole quit or die, Champix, NRT is the only way to go malarkey. Listen, we've got to go into the ads. We'll be back in 2 minutes.
Right on.
Vaper Scene is proudly sponsored by Health E-Vape, UK purveyor of e-cigarettes and Pure Perfection e-liquids.
often imitated, never duplicated. Award-winning service and products from cloud9vaping.co.uk.
And now it's back to Vaper Scene on Vaper Trails TV. Vaper Scene is sponsored by Healthy Vape, UK purveyor of e-cigarettes and Pure Perfection e-liquids. And welcome back to part 2. Yes, just chatting some more there. And Garry, of course, who's sitting over there, aren't you, Garry? You're sitting there quite nicely.
I certainly am, yes, thank you. Listening intently.
But we're going to go back to Russ. And I was asking Russ in the break there, if this action that is currently going through is successful, is it a possibility that the New York State will just then reintroduce a separate e-cig law, if it is a law?
It's quite possible. What's going to happen is by April, we will have a decision of some kind from the judge. Either they'll rule for us, the prosecution, or for the city, the defense. After that, like I said, it's almost 100% chance there will be an appeal. Certainly, if we lose, we will be appealing. So then we're looking at another 8 to 12 months for that process. And after that, if we lose both, it's questionable whether or not we would continue. I would want to. We would have to raise more money, certainly for lawyers at that point, which I don't know what would happen. But let's say that we win both, or win the appeal. That's really winning the last one. It would be great to win this one. It's always good to win the first one. But ultimately, it's the appeal that will be more important. Now, let's say we do win the appeal. New York would have an option to appeal it to the next level, which would be the New York State Supreme Court, I believe, or maybe it's a circuit judge. I'm not quite sure. But they would have another chance to appeal it. There is no guarantee. I don't believe there's a guarantee that their case would be heard. The judges can decline to even hear the case, but they would likely try that. Now, we just don't know. Now, let's say that they don't, and they just say, forget this. We're going to just a piece of paper so that we don't violate this one subject rule, which was the grounds for our lawsuit. And let's take out a new piece of paper and draft a law called the Vaper Free Air Act. Okay, so it would be legal for them to do that. We would certainly fight it, but we wouldn't have a parliamentary procedure or a judicial procedure complaint on that. That would be legal for them to try to do that. Now, the funny thing of it is that if they had simply done that in the first place, they probably would have been successful. Probably, because at the time, when they pushed this at the end of December 2012, there were only 2 vape shops in New York City. There were not a lot of vapors in New York. So if they had simply done that, they probably would have been successful. Now, if you're going to fast forward another year from now after the appeal, and if they are at that point forced to not hide behind this anti-smoking legislation, which is, like I said, popular, if at that time they are forced to take out a new piece of paper, they are going to have significantly more resistance from all of the vape shops and the vapors that have sprung up since they initially, fired their first salvo. So they could, but to them, I would say, good luck. You're gonna have a much tougher time second time around. Yeah.
Are any other states doing a similar thing to New York, Russ?
Not to my knowledge, and that's another thing that might be helpful to other states. Like I said, the one subject rule, some states have it and some states don't. I think most do, and many other states have done the same thing as New York has done. They have not made a law about not allowing electronic cigarette use inside in bars and restaurants and the like. They've just amended their Smoke-Free Air Act. So if if we are successful, our case can be cited as legal precedent in other states. And being that New York City is a influential jurisdiction, and this is, that's kind of how a lot of these smoking bans, flooded the states, and most states have an indoor smoking ban. It started with New York and California, and then it spreads from there. So it could have, we could be doing like the opposite thing. We could be, helping states overturn their vaping bans if our lawsuit is successful.
And I guess the thing to do is to get as many people knowing about what's happening in the state of New York, so they can then fight it in their own states if that happens. I mean, the FDA is going to be countrywide anyway, isn't it?
The FDA will be countrywide. Whatever they decide, whatever rules they enact, will be the law of the land in all 50 states. And there is potential for law. We don't know exactly what they're going to do yet, but we know it's not going to be good. So there will be potential for lawsuits there. They'd be of completely different nature to what Audrey and I are doing here. But all of this, the legislatures, it's hard to win the fights there. It's hard to win the fights in court too, but we have to take every angle, every opportunity that we can, because what they're doing is wrong and is dangerous. And we all know the positive effect that vaping can have on public health. And these so-called public health advocates have shown their true colors, that they are not interested in public health. They're interested in protecting where their money comes from, which is from pharmaceuticals and to a lesser extent from tobacco companies. But they're interested in keeping their jobs, justifying their existence, and exerting control. And if you're a fan of personal freedom, civil liberties, civil rights, vaping is indeed it is a civil rights issue.
Yeah, absolutely agree with you there. We get a lot of stuff over here as well from people over there. Mr. Glantz, for instance, who has shown his true colours on more than one occasion. But it's a shame that the so-called professionals can't see past either Quit or Die or NRT, and they won't see the benefits that we can get from vaping. We've got a lot of professionals over here in the UK that do see that, and we've got a lot of medical people as well who understand vaping is, a lot better for you than smoking, and a lot more effective than NRT.
It's interesting that at least in the U.S., it is against law for a company that sells vapor products. It is against the law for them to say that this is a healthier alternative to smoking, which any thinking person realizes that. Yet it's legal. It's illegal to say that. That is a federal law. Well, it's based on a court case, but anyway, you're not allowed to say that. And it's interesting. I just saw some state somewhere is doing the same thing as New York did, and they want to put in a ban on vaping in public places. And I read a quote from one of the legislators who sponsored the bill, perhaps the author, and they said, "Vaping will lead to the deaths of millions of people." A vapor company cannot say the obvious, the truth, that vaping is a healthier alternative to smoking. Yet this guy, who makes public policy, can come out with an outright lie like that, deceive the public, with no impunity at all. It's a crazy world that we live in, but it is the world we live in, and it's just never going to stop. It's sad, but that's the way things are.
Yeah, it's very true. We can't say that vaping is better for you. There's a lot of things we can't say about vaping, but the so-called experts can say what they like about smoking and vaping. They can say it's really, really bad for you and it contains all this formaldehyde. Don't think so. But yet, when we try and argue that point, we're just, we're just activists. We know too much information. Why can't we, as individuals, know exactly what we're talking about and not be labelled as big pharma or big tobacco? That's the thing.
Mm-hmm. Well, we just got to carry on and keep fighting. Hey, listen, I really appreciate the opportunity to come on to your show and talk to your audience. Like I said, if you're up late enough, you can catch me every night, I guess, just around 2 in the morning on Tuesday morning, on Wednesday morning, I suppose it would be. But yeah, the show broadcasts. ClickBang is the name of my podcast. It's live on Tuesdays at 9 p.m. Eastern. Most people will catch the replays on SoundCloud. You can tune in there by going to bit.ly/ClickBang. You can also just search for the ClickBang archives on SoundCloud. The show, as you might have guessed, does concentrate quite a bit about vaping culture, technology, and activism. The other topics I tend to go to week after week. We have I follow police abuse worldwide, but particularly here in America because it's so bad. We've got it a whole lot worse than you. We do have what I believe to be an epidemic of police abuse in America. I cover that fairly regularly, and I do my best with my comedy bits as well. So come on by, say hi, and thank you again for having me on your program.
Yeah, thanks so much for coming on, Russ. I know with the time difference, it does make things a little bit more difficult. I've listened to your show quite a few times, and it's a really good mix. And we were talking before we went live about last week's show. So you can always go onto SoundCloud. All the links have been put into chat by Dave. You can listen back to shows. And if you're up at 2 o'clock in the morning, you can listen live. And there's chat as well, so you can get involved in Russ's show as well. Thank you so much, Russ, and I hope we'll speak soon.
You're welcome. And one last thing. I think what I'm going to do tonight, after the vaping section of the show, I always do an after hours, which is a music show. So today, I believe I'll be playing some very special binaural recordings, which if you're an audio junkie, you'll know what I'm talking about. Otherwise, if you don't, you'll know that you'll need headphones. I'll be doing some fantastic binaural recordings. So hope to see you then.
That's good stuff. Thank you so much, Russ. What we're going to do now is we're just going to go into a little bit of VT from Andy Sutton from Cardiff on Sunday. Yeah, enjoy this.
So who we are as a group, we're obviously Welsh Vapers. There's some people that have come from further afield and some that are pretty local.
Here in Wales, we're up against the Welsh Assembly government trying to ban vaping in public spaces, and we're trying to throw as much evidence as we can at them to make them reconsider.
The ultimate aim for today, I think, is just for if any passers-by want to question any vaping, given all the bad press that we've had lately, I think being vapers and experienced as what we are, we can obviously set the record straight that there's a lot less harmful risk than what the press is obviously putting out there.
It's always front page news. One journalist gets hold of it and it gets shared amongst every form of media you can think of, and then the odd retraction is a very small, possibly a 2-sentence thing. It's buried in the middle of a newspaper somewhere. But is it getting out to the people that are possibly considering going on to electronic cigarettes and vaping when they read in the front page that it's bad for them or it's worse than smoking, and they carry on smoking? So it's really affecting people's lives.
So a reasonable turnout. There are a bunch of people over there at the moment. They're all vaping away, all out in the cold to try and raise awareness of what vaping is and what it means to them. And it just shows their grim determination to get government to see it our way. I'm a vapor and I've been doing it for 5 years now, and it's the fact that people are trying to pass off research which we know isn't true as fact, and that's putting a lot of people off. And it's meetings like this that just shows me how determined people are to keep hold of their vaping devices. They've found something that has enabled them to switch to a safer alternative, and laws and bad publicity is trying to take it away from them.
I personally believe, and I've seen worked in so many shops and seen the benefits of the individuals, so they really need to start researching it properly and coming across not a biased view. It will save lives, but I think there's other things going on in the background that are not as public as they could be.
I started vaping, I think it was a year and a half ago. I love it. And the range of flavours. That's what attracted me to it, was the range of flavours. My personal favourite is grape. I love it. I love grape. So I don't like the tobacco flavours. Just nice sweet fruit and and you can like mish-match. And I think I mixed strawberry with a white chocolate and it tastes like strawberry milkshake. Lovely. So yeah, that's why I love vaping. It's the range of flavours.
The Welsh Assembly, even if they turned around and wanted to tax it slightly, like what they've done elsewhere within Europe, there's money to be made on these products, and they are a far healthier, in my opinion, they are a far healthier alternative to the combustible way of smoking.
So everyone's all come out in force in Wales, Europe, UK, Europe, to really help give it a big boost. And say, look, this is why we're here, this is what we're talking about, this is what we're promoting here. I'm totally in support of all this, all the campaigning that we're doing. The government aren't just seeing it, they're not seeing it. They still don't get it. We try.
I mean, I didn't realise vaping groups existed on Facebook, etc. until about 6 months ago. But go into a local shop, ask them, and start doing your own research, because that way then you've decided as to whether you're going to go for it or not.
Well, that's the vape meet over. It's now raining, so I'm going to head back. But it has been great to hang out with a bunch of vapers and chat about politics and chat about the state of play in Wales with the vaping public ban, and get lots of opinions and have a chat on camera with a few people. But great to see a turnout considering the weather, and now they've all turned in to go and have a pub meal at a nice warm vape-friendly pub, and I'm going to go back and edit this down. So for Vaper Trails TV, Andy Sutton, Cardiff Bay.
Yes, so that was Andy's footage from Cardiff at the weekend. And as the guys were saying yesterday, not a huge amount of people turned up across the country, but we're not going to go into that tonight, no. What we're going to do now, though, is we're going to go into the last set of ads. And when we come back, we've got Garry with MFT. See you in 2.
Vaper Scene is proudly sponsored by Health E-Vape, UK purveyor of e-cigarettes and Pure Perfection e-liquids.
Vapers, do you love discovering new e-liquids? Tell Dripper the types of flavours you like and they'll send you 5 gourmet juices each month. Experience new and exclusive flavours, all with a money-back guarantee and free delivery anywhere in Europe. Dripper.co.uk.
RY4 Radio.
What's in this e-cig cloud? It's a vapor, right? Pretty much, yes. Compared to a lit cigarette, it's much safer than smoke. But it contains nicotine, and nicotine on its own isn't toxic and doesn't cause cancer. If you're worried about switching to vapor, here are some facts. No tar, no smoke, no burnt tobacco. Cooking your evening meal produces more toxins than are found in exhaled vapor. Tobacco smoke contains toxins at very high levels, and vapour does not. And that vapour contains 6,000 times less carcinogens than cigarette. Electronic cigarette vapour. There's nothing to be frightened of. The only dangerous electronic cigarette is a banned one.
And now it's back to Vaper Scene on Vaper Trails TV. Vaper Scene is sponsored by Healthy Vape, UK purveyor of e-cigarettes and Pure Perfection e-liquids.
And we are back for part 3. Hello. Before we go on to Garry, I just need to mention there's a vape meet on Friday. Andy at Midlands Vaping is putting a vape meet on. 31 King Street, Dudley, DY28NY, 5 till 9 p.m. Parking available, yes. There's going to be a FIFA tournament and the prize is a mutation mod and mutation times V2. That's the information there. It's 31 King Street. They've got product releases, Gizmo mods, Nebula, Amiga, Kanga, DMC Custard, High VG. Yes, and also if you're going to go there, you need to be there for 5:30 for the FIFA tournament. Yes, so there you go. Midlands Vape Meet, Friday afternoon. Yeah. Now then. Let's move on with the next segment of the show, and it is Mr. Garry Dibley who is going to introduce it. Here you go, Garry.
Yes, for this week I finally get to grips, and I mean finally get to grips with Bob's hairy box.
I wasn't ready for that. Here we go. It's MFT.
Covered in stuff. We're back. It's another week. Obviously last week interviewed by Mark. It was a really enjoyable show and it gave me a night off, which was great. I'm back down on the bench with the airy box. It's not a box, it's a tube. What's going on the box? We were making a handmade drip well for Bob's box. So I'm going to try and keep it brief as I can. Basically, you don't want to see me whittling this away, but at the moment I've got to look to get a 20mm diameter. I'm going to then drill it out to a 16 inner, and I've got to allow for the. We'll go through that when we get it. I think I'm up to about I think it's about 25-ish. Feels 25-ish at the moment. It's 23.57, so quite close. Yeah, I don't know where the camera is there. So we're there. I've got another 3mm to take off. I'm going to pop away, get this down to as close as near Demit as I can to 20mm, and then we'll come back and show you the next stages. Right, well I've taken this down to 21. I've stopped at 21. The reason being it's going to need sanding, it's going to need finishing. So I've allowed myself, if you like, 1mm of smoothing this out and the other end. What I'm going to do now is just quickly pop that rest out the way and I'll back this off. The drill bit that I'm going to work with to feed into this blank is one that's got a fitting, an MC2 fitting. That literally if I rotate my tailstock all the way back, keep going, it will just pop out the rotating line centre. And what I'm going to do is I've got a 16mm. I did have a 16. Where's it gone? I need to find my 16mm drill bit. I'm pretty sure I got one. Did I get one? I did. What I didn't do, which was stupid at the time, I just realised what I did do. But basically, I should have got a one of this type. Now that is a mother of a drill. It has an MT2 fitting. Now that will literally just go straight back into the tailstock. Whereas when I bought the 16mm, I got one with a reduced shaft. And reducing one shaft is never fun, I can tell you. So what I'm going to have to do is stick the standard chuck in the back end and find a key to get this bugger in. Apologies for the mess and all that in the background. It's just lots of lathe dust. Right, so I've got him in. Now this is going to be this buggery, and before I start drilling this in any way, shape or form, what I need to work out is the depth I need to go. I need to work out how high I want this this drip cup, because obviously I've got to get an atomizer connector down inside here. I've drilled this out, I can't remember, it was about 8mm, and because it's the acrylic, it gives me a little bit of room to sort of give that a file around and get a nice snug fit on the Atty connector. But I just want to work out how tall I want this, how deep I want the well on it. I've also got to work out, because the atomizer connection effectively passes through the bottom of here, and then is secured up inside this mod. I've got to allow enough depth and allow for the thickness of this wood with the atomizer connection, if you get me. Basically it's got to go through the bottom of the thingy, and there's not much room to play. So it's got to be quite a shallow bum on it. I'm going to go away and do some maths, and I'll come back in two. Right, I did some calculations and thought, no, it's probably better to wing it. I'm just going to wing it by eye and see how it goes. Effectively, what it wants to get in this is a 16mm squonker bottom feeding atomizer. And as we've showed you in the past, this is one of the little vicious ant drippers, but this one has got a hole in its bum, like most of us. But this allows the juice to go up the hole, unlike me, and feed the wick. What I'm looking at doing, I've started this off, and that is going to be a nice snug fit. As you can see, it's going in so deep thus far. Now, the purpose of this well is only to catch any overflow of juice. So I'm not going to take this out much more. Now, you might want to stick your fingers in your ears, because this is a noisy process. Probably worth pointing out, somebody said about the last time we were looking at this, about using some lube. And probably talking about holes in juice and then lube is not a good idea, but I'm going to. This is, when you're drilling acrylic, the thing that you have to worry about is heat generation. It heats up very, very fast. It becomes malleable. You know, it'll move around and this, that, and the other. When working on metal, you can use, he says if it's in focus, this sort of stuff, which is a cutting oil. Now, I don't really want to be using cutting oil on the acrylic. One of two reasons. Can soak into the acrylic a little bit and tend to, if you like, it will stink for ages in there. So I don't want to be using that. When I'm working on acrylic, all I use for polishing is water and micro mesh. For cutting, you know, it's not that bad. You just have to take it slow, like most things. Let me just power this up. Like I say, you might want to stick your fingers in your ears for 2 seconds while I get this turned on. I'm just literally doing this by eye at the moment. all I'm going to be doing is offering up the atomizer until I get roughly where I think, you know, I need to go depth-wise with it. Now, because I've got me hole drilled in for my Yeti already in there, the one thing I don't want to do is impede the air hole, because there is the little breathe hole on there, so I don't want it sitting in so deep that it's you know, it's not going anywhere. But what I do need to do is make sure that it's deep enough. I reckon I can get another Ned's Doodle Whatsits on there comfortably to have enough of a well to catch any drips. 2 seconds, let me just ease one back up the hole. And I'm just taking this ever so gently. Okay. Now I'm quite comfortable with that sort of depth. I could take it and add some more, but I'm not sure whether I want to or not at this stage. What I need to do now is work out my cut-off point. Now, my cut-off point on here has got to allow for the internal drip well, and it's got to allow just a couple of mil for the Yeti to seep through, and then the whole lot gets polished and fixed to the model. Work that out, I'll come back. Right, so I'm happy with where we're drilling. What I'm going to do quickly now is just take some sort of a coarse sandpaper. It is 150 grit sandpaper, and I'm just going to give the end a going over, and then I'm going to just flare the inside ever so slightly. So just taking off the edge. What I'm going to do is just give a little round to the top as well, because at the moment that is a square edge. So just giving a, you can't see that there, but it's just taking off a chunk on the edge. What I am going to do then is just roll this bit of paper up, and I'm just going to flare the inside of it as well. Let me see if I can get a better angle on that. Hang on one second. Try a different approach. This is to the other end. So what I've done is flared the, or just give a little bevel to the top edge there. And what I'm going to do now is just with the curled up paper, just start easing that in and just giving it a little flare. Basically what that's doing is going to make the top a nice roll on the top. And there we go. So we've got a nice graduated flare going out and a roll on top. What I need to do now, as you can see, it's going to take a lot of polishing. Now before I do the cut off, what I am going to be doing very quickly is just with some sandpaper the same. I'm just wetting that sandpaper, and I'm just gonna start working out some of those imperfections from the tool. Now this will scratch the hell out of the blank to start, but I'm feeling by hand as I'm going, and I can feel where the little lumps, bumps, this, that and the other are that need to come out. The only reason I'm going to finish it now before I cut it off is it's going to be bloody hard to do it afterwards. And you can see the heat that's generated just by sanding on how quick that dries up. So basically you can see how scratch to buggery that is. I'm happy with that. What I'm going to do now is basically start taking it down the grits, and then we'll move onto the micro mesh, and then I've got to do something with the insides and get them polished up as well. Pop back into. Right, so I've got it to a point where I'm happy with, and it's still, as you can see, it's I don't know if I can get any closer than that. Probably not. How about that? But it's liney to buggery. There's lots of blemishes in it. So I'm now going to start working it with the micro mesh, and I'm going to try and get this down to a mirror shine as such. And again, all of this process is done with the pads and with some water. Now I'm just going to work in a circular motion with these. And this gradually starts taking out the sandpaper lines. And this is one of the reasons why I left this a millimetre over what I needed, because this finishing process will probably take off just over a mil of material. Now I've got a long old way to go through about 12 grits of paper. So what I'll do is crack on with these, and once again we'll come back in two. Right, I've polished, I've done all that, I've done the inside, got it back on the lathe again. This is where it probably will all go wrong, and where it's gone wrong many times before. My measuring is terrible. I'm going to try and par this off. Now the problems I've had in the past is in paring this off, I've cracked the end bits, this and other, because I'm working with probably 3-4 mil from the bottom of the hole to where I par this off, and because it's a hand lathe, it never works that well to plan. So I'm just going to go away. I might swear. If all else fails, I'll just cut back, start again, and I'll come back like nothing happened. But obviously you'll see the cock up. Now I should be getting close now to that insert hole. And there it is. You just kill that. Now the reason I'm holding that in place is because I didn't want it to fly off anywhere. And do you know what? Dibbly happy man. That needs a bit of sanding. This, that and the other in. but we've got our drip well at the bottom that our atomizer is going to sit through and go in that mod. That is the first bleeding time I've actually got one of those off in one piece. I might have to take it down a little bit on the bottom, but what we're going to do is call that a day there today, and next week we'll be installing this in the airy box. Back to Marco in the studio. Catch you in a bit.
Well, there you go. Garry and I were watching that through and watching chat, and I had tears rolling down my face because I was laughing so much at what you naughty people were saying in chat. And if you don't know what we're talking about, you need to come and watch the show live and come into the chat room, because you will see what a bunch of mad people we have. And as Dave Dawn says numerous times, we have the best chat in the world. Thank you so much. Garry, very quickly, speak to me.
Filthy, the lot of them, that's what I'm going to say. Nothing to do with me at all. Yes, but it's getting there, nearly done.
Yes, and he's the master of the double entendre, and there'll be more double entendres on next week's show. Don't forget that tomorrow night you have Matt with The Cave, and on Thursday you've got Dave with The Haze Hour, and more than likely with Mr. Keith as well. Sunday, hopefully, Dave will be back with his tackle box, and then on Monday you've got Andy and Davey with Drips and Tips. Garry and I will see you next Tuesday. No comments in chat about that, please. And then don't forget, you've got RY4 Radio every damn night of the week. We will see you all next week. Say good night, Garry.
Good night. We'll catch you next week.
And we'll see you next week. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.
Vaper Scene is proudly sponsored by Health E-Vape, UK purveyor of e-cigarettes and Pure Perfection e-liquids.